Hello, my name is Chad Preisler, and today I want to talk to you about JavaFX properties. In JavaFX, properties allow you to take values from your controls, your view controls, and easily bind them to properties in your Java beans or in the model. To get started, we're going to create a simple form, and I'm going to add a text field to it that I'm going to give it an ID called email address text field. And underneath that, I'm going to add a button. And we're just going to change the label of that to save. And we're going to create an on save action handler. All right. And now I'm going to use the simple the skeleton that Scene Builder creates for me. And I'm going to save my controller class to my source code directory. Okay. And now I'm going to jump into the IDE, and you can see that we have our primary controller here. Inside of this, we have a variable for the email address text field, and we have our onSave action. Our model class is going to be a user, and I'm going to add a string property to this class, and I'm going to call it email address. So I'm going to create a new simple string property. All right. And then I'm going to just create a simple method that returns a string property. Now, in regular Java beans, you typically see getters and setters. JavaFX kind of has a convention that just says, okay, use the property name. So here I'm going to return a string property, and I'm just going to call the method email address property, and we're going to return the email address. And that's it. So that's our model bean, one property. So let's go over to the controller. The first thing we're going to do over here is create a user object. So this is our model object that we're going to use and bind to our screen control. The next thing we're going to do is create a special method called initialize, and we're going to annotate it with the @fxml annotation. This method will allow us to bind the properties together. So we're going to take the email address text field, we're going to get its text property, and we're going to do a bidirectional binding on the user email address property. So now we've basically created a bidirectional binding, which allows us to take the value from the control. Any changes to the value of the control on the screen will be reflected in the bean, and any changes to the bean will be reflected on the screen. So let's now, in our onSave action handler, we're going to print out a message with the email address that was entered on the screen. And we're going to do that via the property in our model component. So there we have that. And if we did everything right, when we run this, we should see whatever's entered on the screen printed out to the console. So let's take a look at what happens. All right, so let's put in test@tester.com, and we'll hit save, and we see that the value entered in the text field is printed out to the console, and we did that by binding it to the user's email address property. So to show the bidirectional nature of this, we're going to go in and before we bind the controls together, or the properties together, we're going to set the user's value to an email address. So let's just put in tester@test.com, and now when we run this, we should see on the screen we should see the value tester@test.com in the field. So let's take a look at that. Takes just a second to compile, and voila, there it is. So what we saw today was a bidirectional binding in JavaFX. Any changes to the screen control are reflected in the model, and any changes to the model are reflected in the screen. That's all I have for you today for JavaFX properties. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.